everyone, this is Huafang Li. In this short video, we are going to document who donates, mainly based in United States. So as you can see, from the 1980s until recently, this is basically a steady increase in terms of charitable giving to nonprofit sector. And whether it's based on the inflation adjusted dollars or measured by the current dollars, basically we can see the upward trend, except for 2008, 2009, 2010. That's because of the financial crisis. All right, then you'll see it catches up again and until 2020. Now this is a number from the Giving USA report. Now, so we learned that private giving is increasing, but to whom, right? Where are these donated dollars go? So if we mainly look at the 501c3 nonprofit organizations, okay, so this documents the total number from the last 10 years. Also, you can see the number varies a little bit, right? But it catches recently you have about 1.37 million nonprofit organizations in the year of 2019. So this is only the number registered with the IRS. Okay, so some of the churches may not registered with IRS. Okay, and so what do we mean by 501c3 nonprofit organizations, right? So this is basically based on the Tax Revenue Act of 1917. So this is the Internal Revenue Service Code, right? So basically the tax code categorizes these kind of incorporated organizations to receive tax exempt status, right? So to be organized for one or more of the following 8 purposes, then you can be listed as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So charitable organization, religious, educational, scientific, prevention cruelty to children and animals, literacy, testing for public safety, fostering national or international amateur sports competitions. But these definitions, of course, changed a little bit over the years, right? So nowadays, we generally categorize them into religion, education, human service foundations, public society benefit, health, international affairs, arts, culture, and humanity, environmental and animals, and transfer to individuals, right? So in 2020, Americans gave $471.44 billion to charity. So this is a 5% increase over the previous year. So this is a huge increase. One of the reasons is, of course, because of the COVID-19, right? So then people tend to not decrease, but quite the opposite. They increase than giving. Now, of course, many of the giving are made by foundations, bequests, corporations, but still individual giving dominates all the other sources. Right? But of course, you can say some of the foundations giving, they are actually made by individuals as well, right? So definitely we can safely conclude that individual giving dominates all the giving sources. So if you only count giving by individuals, that will be $324.10 billion. Okay, and then you can see where the money go, right? Most of the charitable giving goes to religious-related congregations, church, temple, mosques, etc. And followed by education, human service, foundations, public society benefits, and public health, etc. Right, and also international affairs, arts, culture, humanity, environmental, animal, and the other transfer to individuals. Right, so we talked about all these. Now, so we also want to understand who actually gives, right, in terms of individual giving. All right, so Becker and Webkin did a systematic literature review in 2011, 2012, and they break it down, right? So affiliation with a religion, strong religious involvement, like more actively involved in religious activities, higher age, elderly people, higher education, income, wealth, home ownership, a better subjective financial position, married, have children, have paid job, higher cognitive ability, have pro-social personality, etc., and growing up with parents with high education, income, religious, and voluntary activities. So let's first look at the relationship between charitable giving and the religious affiliations and attendance. Okay, so why, if you're affiliated with a religion or you being quite actively involved in religious activities might lead to more giving, right? So, of course, religious affiliations and attendance can increase not only religious giving but also secular giving as well. Now, there's some mechanisms. So first is, of course, the values, right? So the conservative religious beliefs, etc., right? So this is because it's your religious affiliation. And then, of course, you feel in the same line, or you feel being called by the God, then you're more likely to give. Now, the other thing related to that is because of the religious education, right? So you attend religious activities weekly or monthly, etc. Then over the years, then you become more pro-social, right? Because some of the values are in the line with religious beliefs. And then, of course, if you attend religious activities, you kind of build the reputation among the community, right? So this then the social rewarding for your donation, and also the most importantly, because you will be asked to give. Many of the religion church samples as well as mosques, they ask them members to certain amount of monthly salary or annual salary to be donated to the organization so that they can perform the services, right? So that's because they were being asked more frequently than maybe other nonprofit organization. So this is the total givings by source in 5 years span from 1981 to 2020, on the left. Okay, then on the right is the percentage change. So as you can see, the individuals, right, there's still quite steady increase, and followed by foundations, and then bequests, and the corporations maintain very stable. But if you look at the percentage, which one is actually changed a little bit, you will see the share of individual giving is actually shrinking from 82% in 1981 and to 1985 until the recently is about 70%. So there's a 12% decrease, right? And while in the meantime, the foundations giving share from 6% increased to 17%. It's about 11% increase. So basically means the decreased individual donations actually went to foundations, right? So, but if you combine these two together, the share is actually quite stable. Now, we don't have detailed reasons why that will be the case. Maybe because of the accumulation of wealth, then there's more foundations. It's much easier for people just to give to foundations than foundations reallocate the money, right? Or many would argue this is also related to somehow the decline of religion in United States overall. Okay, so it's still a very religious country, the United States in general, but still the younger generation, they tend to attend the church less than their parents and grandparents. And nowadays, the number of people claim they are religious person is continue declining. So that possibly explains why individual giving declined a little bit. And then, but even for those who attend less religious activities or become less religious, they still want to give. Only they give to the foundations to do other things. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. All right, now let's look at the charitable giving and giving to the level of education and charitable giving. Okay, so what kind of things can explain higher educating and donate more to the society? Now, basically, we would say there's two things, right? One is higher education usually means higher income, and then they learn more about the society, right? And if you have a higher level of income, even you say, okay, because the tax price based put on your income might be higher than the low income group, it still might influence the amount of your donation, right? The other thing is level of education. Now, of course, this is highly associated with your cognitive ability, right? So, and then you are aware of the needs, social needs, aware of the role of nonprofit organizations, and of course, you will realize, do some research, right? Because you are highly educated, and you'll figure out where can make your charitable giving more effective. So these will also influence the amount of donation that you made to nonprofit organizations. And the socialization character and how this can influence giving is, when we talk about socialization characters, we usually talk about the parent side, right? So the parents, the religious affiliation, parents' volunteering activity, parents' education background that will also influence the next generation's education background, voluntary behavior, religious activities, right? And again, all these further influence individuals' charitable giving behavior. Oh, one of the things I possibly want to mention here is this is actually quite unique to religious, the psychological benefits, right? Because the religious education may, in general, right, they will educate that you have seen in different forms. So to reduce the negative feeling, right, or to relieve your guilty, you will possibly give to some good causes, right, so that it will release your psychological burden by feeling guilty, right? So then it will ease this burden, and you feel less guilty by giving to good social causes. All right. So, are there any significant differences between male and females? Here, LG represents a gender difference in likelihood of giving, and the euro dollar sign indicates a gender difference in the amount of giving. So most of the studies, you'll find that there's significant differences, right? If you break it down. Overall, the empirical evidence actually doesn't show quite differently. Like, okay, women's giving behavior is quite different from men. However, if you break it down, break it into health, human service, nature, religion, education, recreation, or secular organizations, you'll see actually they are quite different. Now, for the health, the result is mixed, right? Some studies find, men donate more, while more studies find women donate more. But for human service, most of the studies find that women donate more than men, right? But for nature, for preserving the nature, etc., right? So 2 studies find men donated more than women. And religions, again, mixed, education mixed, recreation mixed. But for the secular organizations, again, now more studies find women donated more than men. Okay, so what could be possible reasons to explain the differences between gender and the giving behavior? Now, one of the things we needed to consider the unique characters of females. So first, they possibly will be solicited more, right? Be asked more because of those social networks. So that will increase their charitable giving, and they will also see those reputational, right? So the social ties or social network build in female groups, it will influence their charitable giving behavior. Now, of course, the cost and also the value, right? Pro-social value, etc. So, but mainly we would argue that in human service and in secular organizations, women may be involved more than men. And if they involve more, if they build social networks around these organizations, and if they really agree the social causes and develop pro-social motivations and values, then of course female will be more motivated to give to these organizations in that area. Okay. All right, so now let's look at the family composition and then household charitable giving behavior, right? So it definitely influences people's giving behavior in terms of whether or not they are married and or divorced, whether or not they have children, how many children they have, right? The first thing is, compared with having no children. Now, if you have children, one or even more, then soon you will realize there's needs for children, right? So, and also if your children attend the school, they will be solicited more than you have no kids. So these 2 mechanisms will increase their charitable giving for people who have children. And the married versus not married. Now, married people, regardless it's traditional family or family with LGBTQ groups. So if people married, they are more likely to agree upon certain pro-social values, especially for like LGBTQ groups, right? So they will agree more on these issues related to that, right? And if a nonprofit organization is working in that particular area, then of course they can solicit, and maybe it will also increase these people's giving behavior. All right, so that will be the family structure and how the family structure will influence charitable giving. All right, so the other thing quite significantly influence giving behavior will be whether or not you're rich, right? Now, the previous literature, based on previous literature, we can conclude that there are large differences in giving between people with different levels of financial resource. The relationship between financial resources and giving can, to some extent, be explained by the cost mechanism, right? According to which people will donate more money when the costs for giving are low. For example, because they can deduct their donations from income tax, etc. Right? So, so if the income and wealth, you have more income, and that's most likely you are going to donate more, right? And the perception of financial resources is actually a very important factor here that will influence people's charitable giving behavior. So the idea about perception of financial resources, right? You can be say, okay, you are not super rich, right? But you feel financially safe and sustainable. And if you're looking at the future, you will predict then the steady increase in your income. So you will feel quite safe, right? So then that safety may give you more resources to think about others. Right, so it will influence your altruistic attitudes, and it also will give you some psychological benefits like warm glow effects, right? You are purely enjoying the action of giving. Right? So by giving to others, to charities, it makes you feel good. Right? So these two mechanisms will increase if people perceive they have financial safety and the sustainability, then they are going to increase their charitable giving. And so who gives more, right? So in terms of the poor and the rich. Now, if you look at the numbers, it's possibly will be shocking to you that people earn less than 20,000, they actually give a higher percentage than people with annual income between 20,000 and 100,000. Okay, so they give on average 4.6% of their annual income to charities. However, if you look at the actual number, right? So the number tells a different story. So for the poor people, obviously they give less, and for rich people they give a little bit more. Okay. So now we talked about this, but how about those super rich? Now, I will focus this one, right? Because there's many explanations why poor people give more in terms of the percentage of giving. Because poor people understand the needs of poor, right? The vulnerable group of people, right? So they have strong feelings of compassion for others. So while people on the higher socioeconomic status, they contact less people with urgent needs, so to speak. Okay. So how about the ultra wealth, right? So now this is basically the figure we replicated from the previous one, right? So in terms of percentage, the poorest actually give a higher percentage. But how about the ultra like wealthy? Now they actually give the highest percentage, right? So we call this smiling curve, right? So charitable giving, the relationship between income level and charitable giving is actually a smiling curve in terms of the giving percentage. Okay, so giving is more like a U-shaped curve or a smiling curve. Okay, so I'm not sure I can cover all other aspects of different groups of people and why they give, right? So, but hopefully this video gives you a broader picture to think about when we talk about giving, what kind of group of people we should pay attention to, right? Are there any difference between women and men? Are there any difference between people with different income levels? Are any differences between people with different education background, religious affiliation, etc., right? So for instance, here we didn't talk about the political affiliation, right? How about people with conservative ideas versus liberal ideas, are they differ in terms of giving, right? So there's many other areas we need to explore, but the general sense I want you to think about is different groups of people